acting. So she went back to Disney and she appeared in Johnny Tremaine the next year and a couple of those. But here are a couple of segments from tribute to Joel Chandler Harris. If things work okay, we're going to see Walt do an introduction to the segment, so you hear him talk about Song of the South. We'll see a little segment with David Stollery observing real-life wildlife to get the ideas for Brer Fox and all that. He wasn't listening to storytellers and copying it down like Harris did. He's observing himself and creating this. And then we're going to finish with a little segment from the Briar Patch portion of the film. Now the Briar Patch is important, and it's kids who ride the ride today have no understanding because they haven't seen the film. But the whole point of the Briar Patch is that poor Brer Rabbit has been finally captured by Brer Bear and Brer Fox, and they're going to eat him. That's about it. And Brer Rabbit says, okay, you can do anything to me. You can hang me, you can skin me alive, whatever, but please, please don't throw me into the Briar Patch. And a Briar Patch has the little spikes and the little thorns and all of that. But of course, as we find out, Brer Rabbit was born and bred in a Briar Patch. And so that's what is happening to you on the Splash Mountain ride. You've been captured, and now you are being thrown into the Briar Patch. But you're not thrown into the Briar Patch, you're thrown through the Briar Patch, just like Brer Rabbit is. And so that's why all of that happens. And that final drop, by the way, both in California and out here, is 52.5 feet at a 47-degree incline. And you're going at a top speed of about 40 miles an hour. If you have somebody like me in there with you, it can get up to 45 miles an hour. After this clip, we'll tell you about some of the problems they had with the splash there. But that was basically it. And the very first log was bench sitting. So it was single file. So it was like the original Matterhorn bobsleds. And it was only when it came out to Florida that they got the idea that, you know, sometimes people don't like sitting up against somebody's crotch and all that. Maybe we should have, you know, 2 by 2. And if we did that, maybe we could also get a little bit more room in here because, well, I'll tell you about the logs after this clip. But let's see how these clips go. We've got 3 of them here in a row. Oh, this looks good. This looks promising. If you want to hit the lights.
Now, here is your host, Walt Disney. One of the most entertaining chapters in American folklore was supplied us by the wonderful Uncle Remus stories of Joel Chandler Harris. For 4 generations, these magical tales of Brer Rabbit and his talking animal friends have delighted the hearts of children of all ages and in all parts of the world. This battered little book, Uncle Remus, his Songs and Sayings, published in 1881, met with instant success and gave the people outside the South their first knowledge of these beloved animal legends told on the plantations by the old Negro storytellers who had been handing them down from generation to generation. Later in the program, we're going to visit Uncle Remus and listen to one of his stories. But first, let's make ourselves acquainted with the truly gentle and modest man who gave us the beloved Uncle Remus stories, Joel Chandler Harris.
My beginning years were spent in Eatonton, a small town, and I wandered into the woods, as I did many an afternoon during the days that followed, discovering the world of animals and birds, and the wonder of their ways. I met Mr. Raven, and watched with delight the family of Mr. and Mrs. Fox at play. I spied on Brer Fox himself, from a respectful distance, of course. Wherever you find Brer Fox, somewhere close by is sure to be his tantalizing, hoped-for victim, Brer Rabbit. got clean away.
And now we're going to go into the... here we go.
Joel Chandler Harris, as we all know, went on to a place in the hearts of the whole world. For searching out and preserving these wise and witty plantation legends based on the memories of his days at Turnwald, for creating Uncle Remus to tell them, he will be forever loved by the children of all ages and of all races everywhere. Now, from a motion picture Song of the South, let's listen while Uncle Remus himself tells what is probably the most famous of all of his fables.
Oh, how do you do?
Yeah, how you come on?
He's wishing he'd never been born.
You and me.
Well, Brother Rabbit, you sure looks like a sport all stuck up in your swallowtail coat. Don't it look good this cool? I ain't never seen nobody like that.
Let me say,
Other folks' business, you mine's the best.
don't say no more. We see the rest.
We sure do. We don't need to see nobody else.
What I'm gonna say is,
He's a pretty smart fella, the folks all say.
yeah, no lot of
But he
fish.
forgot him today. He forgot everything and he went back. Well, sugar, you ain't never seen nobody that had humble come tumbleness down as fine as what Brother Rabbit had it been. Poor little critter. He learned a powerful lesson, but he learned it too late. But it just goes to show you when it comes to mixing up with something you've got no business with in the first place. And don't you never forget it.
How'd Brother Rabbit get away, Uncle Remus?
Who say get away?
Brother Rabbit always gets away.
Don't you be too sure.
Ain't I done told you that Brother Rabbit being little without much strength, he's supposed to use his head instead of his foot.
Did he? Sure he did.
Now who's telling this here tale?
You are.
Then you just sit and do the listening. Well, sir, there he was, sitting in the middle of the road, just like you sitting in that chair. Only he's all mixed up with that tar baby. And it sure looked like the end of the finish for poor little Brother Rabbit. Cause old Brother Fox was fixed to barbecue him for dinner. Right then and there.
Yes, sir, yes, sir. Just in a minute now. Won't be long now. Dinner gonna be ready in a minute now. All I have to do is put a few more sticks on the fire. Get the fire going good. Oh, excuse me. You just want to stay for dinner, ain't you, Brother Rabbit? We ain't going to take no excuses now. We just love to have you for dinner. Wouldn't we just love to have him for dinner, Brother Rabbit? Ain't that just what you've been saying?
No, sir. What I said was, I'm gonna knock his head clean off.
No, he's not that. No, stop. No, wait, no,
Just
no, see, he's mine. I caught him and you keep your hands off.
but look, I'm gonna knock his head.
No, that's too quick. We're gonna make him suffer. And I'm gonna do it the way I wanna do it.
Look.
Oh, I know I got right in the back of my little head. I know what you're gonna do. What's that?
I'm gonna knock his head.
Go ahead, brother man. Come on, knock my head clean off.
But he not feel it.
Yes, he does. But please don't fling me in that briar patch. Now again, you keep out there saying on your business. Maybe I'll hang him. That's it. I'll hang him. Hang him by the neck till he's dead. Hang me if you like, Brother Fox, huh? Go ahead. But don't fling me in that briar patch. Well, I got no room for the hanging, so I expect I'll have to skin you. Yeah, sure. What's that? I said I'm gonna skin you. Skin me? Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Yes, sir. Skin me if you like, Brother Fox. But there's one thing I don't want you to do. Huh? What's that? Brother Fox. I mean, whatever you do, Brother Fox. Whatever you do, please, Brother Fox. Please don't fling me in that briar patch. Briar patch? Briar patch. I'm glad I thought that. Yes, indeed. I sure am glad I thought that. But you ain't gonna bring me in there, is you? Who, me? Oh, no. We ain't gonna do that. No, sir. We wouldn't do that. We wouldn't do that, Brother. We ain't gonna take that to Charlie.
No. knock his head clean.
Yes, sir, Brother Fox. I was born and bred in a brown patcher. Yes, sir. Born and bred in a brown patcher. Born and bred in a brown patcher.
So now, it's Brer Fox's turn to feel humble come tumble. But old Black Bear, he don't say nothing. And Brer Fox, he lay low. Mighty low. Sure love.
That's another one, Uncle Remus. The one who told Daddy about Bird Frog having his tail.
And losing it?
Okay. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit more because I don't want you to forget how fantastic I am. And you get so wrapped up in this. By the way, that clip from Tribute to Joel Chandler Harris, that's the first time that people have seen it in 53 years. Last time it was run was 1960. So yes, Arlen, you can talk to me and we'll talk later. Because I have the entire hour-long episode.
On TV?
On TV, on the Disneyland weekly TV show. And it was run in 56 originally to promote the re-release. But of course, you know, Walt, it's like, let's rerun. Because again, you don't have VCRs in those days or DVRs or whatever. But again, what was happening is by the time you're getting into the 60s, Song of the South is becoming troublesome, so you're not running that, you know, on TV. For instance, the segment with the Tar Baby. Now, it's important to realize that Walt didn't come up with the term Tar Baby, and even Joel Chandler Harris didn't come up with the term Tar Baby or the concept of that. It's what Joel Chandler Harris was listening to storytellers on plantations when he was growing up, like Uncle Bob Capers and some of those, and that's where he was getting that. Unfortunately, what happened in the 1930s is the term Tar Baby, and this is one of the reasons why, well, why doesn't Disney just release the cartoons? You can't release the Tar Baby segment because in the 1930s, the term Tar Baby became a prerogative term, especially for young black children, and very offensive to black adults. But that was not the intention. The intention was, yes, in those days you had tar was sticky, and the point we're trying to make is don't mess with things that are not your business, and if you stick your foot in something, if you get stuck, sticking your other foot in there isn't going to get you out, and sticking your hands in there, you know, and it became that metaphor for a very sticky situation. In the early 70s, in the Disney storybooks and the comic books, they changed the Tar Baby to a white glue baby. But it didn't have the same effect. And then if you've written Splash Mountain, you see that they eliminate that entirely, and Brer Rabbit is stuck in honey. And so you get that same concept of Brer Rabbit being stuck in something and can't get out, and the more you struggle, the more you get caught. But, you know, avoiding that same thing. That last scene, I love Brer Bear. The last scene where Brer Bear clubs, if you were in the Disney character department in 1976, the training tape for portraying Brer Fox and Brer Bear includes the fact that while you're out on set, Brer Bear should occasionally just hit Brer Fox over the head with a club, which I hope was, you know, a Nerf club or something. But, in those days, what do you know, 1976. The voice of Brer Bear is Nicodemus Stewart. All of the characters there were portrayed by black actors. Nicodemus Stewart, amazing man. He was in his 70s when Splash Mountain opened in 1989. They called him back to do the voice of Brer Bear. That soundtrack is also out here in Florida. And in 1989, I got a chance to meet him. And I said, I don't want to be, disrespectful, Mr. Stewart, and I know you've had a long career in film and TV shows, but of course Disney is what I'm most interested in. And I said, did you feel it degrading to play that part, because again, there's that controversy. And he just gave the biggest laugh I'd ever heard in my entire life. And he says, are you kidding? Disney treated us like kings. And he says, you know what I did with the money from that? And, of course, as my dad says, it's okay to look like an idiot for 5 minutes if you look like a hero for the rest of your life. Little did he suspect that here in 2013 I'd be telling this story and people go, oh yes, what is it? And he says he took that money and in Los Angeles he created the Ebony Theater Workshop in order to give black actors roles other than maids and butlers. And he says, that's what I'm going to be doing with the money I get for this. He says, and I hope by doing this it'll bring some publicity to that. Wow, cool. And he says, and I love the character. And my gosh, I love James Baskett, who plays Uncle Remus. And of course, as some of you know, he got an honorary Academy Award. Walt Disney himself wrote to the head of the Academy and said, James Baskett is just amazing. And he said, and he created this character really without any direction whatsoever. He created this full and all of this. He's deserving of this. Hedda Hopper, a gossip columnist, got on board and said that. Betty Davis did as well. And so James Baskett was given a special Academy Award for his creation of the character of Uncle Remus. Unfortunately, 6 months later, at the age of 44, he passed away from a heart attack from diabetes. But Walt was a true friend to him. When Walt was in New York, he knew that Baskett loved Paul Robeson, and so he'd pick up an album and send it to him, and he knew that the Baskett family was struggling a bit because of health problems, so he'd just send some money. That was just who Walt was. The incredible thing from that segment that you just saw was not just James Baskett doing Uncle Remus, he also did the voice of Brer Fox. And I talked with Frank Thomas, who was an animator, and Mark Davis, who was an animator on these segments, and they said, we loved Jimmy. Jimmy spoke so fast, he could get out 4 or 5 words a second, every second. He said he spoke so fast we could not synchronize Brer Fox's mouth. Even though we're doing 24 drawings for each second of animation, we could not synchronize exactly the mouth with what he was giving us. And he had just such a fantastic range. The voice of Brer Rabbit was a black singer by the name of Johnny Lee. All of this is in my book, Who's Afraid of the Song of the South, which is not a controversial book. I'm just listing all of these facts because, again, Disney wants to ignore that this even exists. So I felt some of this material needed to be recorded. Now, I promised to tell you a little bit about the logs. Yes, Six Flags Over Texas had a log ride, and Knott's Berry Farm had a log ride, but of course, Disney wants to do the biggest, have the largest drop, tell the best story, the whole bit, and none of this had been done before, so there were all sorts of problems. And the very first time they ran the log, Tony Baxter was in there, and he said, by the time I hit the end of that final splash, I was so soaked, I had to get off, drive home, change, and then come back. Because it was that. And they tried things, they couldn't adjust the flume to get it right. The logs had to be lightened. 500 pounds each had to be taken off the logs. They had to also remove a seed or two from the log for that to happen. And they're playing around with the water because water will never do what you want it to do. And so what happens is a couple of months before opening, Michael Eisner shows up. Wants to ride the ride. No, no, Michael, it's not finished yet, and we're adjusting this, and there's still scaffolding in there. I want to ride the ride. Well, Michael, you know, if you come back and we need to click, I'd like to ride the ride. Okay. So they got a huge, extra large, black garbage bag, punched a hole in one end of it to put over his head, so it's covering him as best as possible. He sits right in the front. 6 other Imagineers, including Tony Baxter, cram into the seats behind, because at that time the log had 7 seats. It then later went down to 5, and then it went back up to 6, and which is what it is at Disneyland when it finally opened in '89. And they're going through there, but they're scaffolding because they're not finished. And so Tony Baxter is sitting in the back there yelling, "Duck! Duck!" You know, so that their heads don't get taken off. You know, right by that final lift where the vultures are, and it's, you know, there's these things swinging overhead. Duck! Duck! You know, and so down, and then they go up and they go down and they get off and they get off the ride, and the only thing that Michael Eisner says is, "Can we do this again?" And Splash Mountain is all cement, all concrete, even the watermelons. Because again, you're dealing with water, so you don't want to have wood or things like that that will rot. There are only 2 major set pieces in Splash Mountain that are not made out of cement. I won't ask you to guess what those are, because I always hated that when a teacher asked a question he already knew the answer. Why is he asking me? All right. It's the Zippity Doo Dah Lady show finale, which at the time was the largest show prop ever built for Disneyland. And the thing that was right next to it, which was, by golly, a little mule cart, which has some people in there that, again, were from America Sings, and they were the flappers. That, you know, I keep talking about America Sings, and it's sad because some of you never got to see that show. So I wonder what the next video clip is. The next video clip is not the entire show. It's the segment which is called The Old South. And so if you think of the Carousel of Progress stage that you guys have seen, when you come to that stage, you don't just see the scene and you move on. You see that scene, and then maybe over at the side is another scene, and maybe over at the side is another scene, and all of that. And remember that the narrator is getting you through is Sam the Eagle and his pal Ollie the Owl there. And of course, at the end of every segment, a weasel, an annoying weasel, would pop up and goes, "Pop goes the weasel." And of course, we have that weasel out here in Florida. As you're going up to that final dip, there's a weasel that will pop out. But as you take a look at this, and remember, this was filmed in those days when I was young, and cameras were terrible, and you couldn't adjust to the lighting that was there, and you weren't supposed to be filming in a ride anyway. Little suspecting that Disney would never film the ride, and well, Disney is sure to film this, and have that now. But you'll take a look and see if you notice any of the characters that later popped up in Splash Mountain. Okay, let's see what we got. Now, one of those, 2 of those geese actually became droids in Star Tours. They plucked them. And there was a segment that took place. Well, actually, we can run this right now. This is just some home movie shot of Splash Mountain being built, so you can see them literally tearing things apart. And so, just as we get a fascination now at watching the Snow White mine train being built, here's a little segment of what it looked like when they were building Splash Mountain. So they had the big boards up there too with the concept art to get you all excited.
Completely rock that.
So you couldn't get to the canoes, you couldn't get to the keel boats. There was a Hungry Bear restaurant over there. Little girl all upset she can't see the ride. She's seen it on TV.
What's more people here today? We're on Tom Sawyer's Island looking over the what used to be bear country. That's all that's left right now. They
Construction started in '86.
Getting it ready for Splash Mountain. There's the Hungry Bear restaurant over there. You can see even the train tunnel over there is torn out.
Right over there. The train had, they had to stop the train because they actually pulled out the entire train station. And so the train that went around the park only went to Toontown and back. Main Street to Toontown, back and forth. And the train would go backwards. So that was fun sometimes. In order to see that. Yes, two of the geese in America Sings were stripped of their feathers, stripped of their skin. That's all that happened to them. And then they were put into Star Tours as two droids. So they are known as G2 and G4. And the G, of course, stands for geese, which now you know. And again, Disney was able to save a little money for all that